There we go. So we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Hi guys, I'm live today with Jandre, and I am excited to chat to you about the year ahead, about entrepreneurship, social media, and get some insights. How have you been? How was the year, Jandre? How's the year started off for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really good. Thanks for asking. But it's you and me talk about it a lot. It's like when you ask someone how you're doing, it's such a loaded question. You can always say, "Yeah, I'm good, thanks." But at the same time, it's like, how are you really doing? And I think if I have to answer how I'm really doing, I'm doing really well. I'm at peace. I am grateful. I am full of love and energy and excited about 2024. I really am. Not just saying that. I think it's more perspective than anything else. So when you can change your lens that you see life through, then you cannot help but be optimistic and be grateful for what you've got. So yeah, I think I'm doing really well, to answer your question. How are you
That,
doing?
that's awesome. Awesome. Yes, so I'm going to share with you. I just want to welcome all the guests. I see Alicia is saying the YouTube live is not available yet. It might become available just now. Hello, Nazreen. Hope you are also doing fantastic. Guys, if you're watching, this is going to be such an insightful session, but please let us know where you are watching from. The idea is just to share some information, to give us of some inspiration and positivity, and who better to help us with that today than Jandre, who always has a smile on his face and always says it's going good, well with him and good. And I actually want to, we want to talk a little bit about business and social media, but I find that, Jandre, when I started my journey with becoming an entrepreneur, I just had this urge of, I just need a product. I want a product to sell and I want to become an entrepreneur. That was when I was still working for a boss. And I kept finding these coaches saying, but 90% of entrepreneurship is mindset. And I'm like, I don't have a problem with mindset. Just tell me what I must do. Like, tell me what I must do. And
Mm.
the longer I'm an entrepreneur, the more I realized that. And that was like 8 years ago. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
mindset is such an important part.
Look, I think we underestimate how big a role our thoughts, our daily thoughts, play when it comes to our success. I think a lot of people are completely ignorant to the fact that their thoughts affect their reality. I think we think that our thoughts are isolated from the world that we experience, and it's just not. They are very, very connected. And I'm not the first person to say this. Many, many studies have proven it. You've got people like Joe Dispenza. You've got
Mm.
um, like a lot of people, like even Christian preachers, like what's his name, Joel Osteen, for example. There's so many preachers, and from a Christian standpoint, for those who are religious, there are so many other people, authors and scientists, that have proven that your thoughts are not isolated from the reality outside. They're actually very, very connected, and that your thoughts do influence not only how you perceive reality, but what actually happens to you as well. So, why, if that is the case, if our thoughts are truly so connected with the reality that we experience, is it not in our best interest to really work on our mindset? Because your existing mindset is what technically controls your thoughts, which then dictates your emotions, and which then dictates your actions. Everything starts with your thoughts. So, your thoughts, if you have too many anxious thoughts, what happens? You start to become extremely anxious. When you become so anxious that you actually become extremely fearful, you're going to take certain actions that are in correlating to that fear. So you're going to act out of fear, which means you're going to do certain things that you would most likely not do in a constructive way. So
Mm.
mindset is literally the number one thing that I've worked on since I was, I think, 25. Like that's really when my 25, 24, when my personal development journey began, when I just actually started my first successful business, or just when I got it off the ground and someone wanted to invest in it. So as that happened, I was like, let me work on myself, because I need to make sure that this guy gets the best version of Jandre. If he's going to invest in my business, I need to make sure that he gets the best version of me. And that's really how my personal development journey began. So mindset is really everything. But from a more, I would say, tangible perspective, yes, it's a nice bumper sticker. But if you understand how your thoughts impact your emotions and your emotions impact your actions, then you start to understand why your mindset is so important. And then you become more inclined to fix it as well. So, yeah.
So I see there's so many of you on here. Remember that you can ask your questions, anything. Most of you are entrepreneurs, business owners. But what I'm interested in, so we understand that mindset is so important. But if I have to think back at me at that age when I heard, work on your mindset, this is the most important thing. To me, it didn't make sense at the time. Like I couldn't understand it. All I wanted was to know what is the what does the market want, and what product can I put in there. So if there's maybe someone else feeling like, okay, we know mindset is important, but look, we have to make money. How do you feel practically? If we can just break it down a little bit more, and what can we practically do to change that mindset, and how is that really related to growing your business?
Mm. So a lot of people are not necessarily going to agree with what I have to say, but before I get to the advice part, let me tell you what I did. That's all I can do.
Mm,
So I don't give advice. I just share opinions, and I just share experiences. I don't really enjoy even giving an opinion, because the opinion is just based on my experience. So I just share the experience, and then people can take that and do what they want with it. So when I became conscious about how important my thoughts actually play a role in my personal development, my success, and also just what happens to me as a human being, I started writing down what I'm thinking. So every time I had like a I would say like an important thought. I'm not talking about should I eat this or should I eat that, or should I go to the gym or not go to gym. Like whenever I had like a thought that evoked an emotion in me, I wrote down what that thought was. So for example, the moment I get anxious, I was like, why did I get anxious just now? So you need to obviously develop a sense of self-awareness to know when you're getting emotional as well. But the moment I felt that my emotional state changed, good or bad, I would write down what thought led to that, because I understood my thoughts impact my emotions impact my actions. Okay, so
mm,
that's technically to answer the short of the question, of your question in short, is at the end of the day, it's connected by your thoughts impacting your emotions and your emotions impacting the action that you're taking. So that's the long of the short of it, but we can unpack that in a second. When I started understanding how it's connected, I started literally journaling. I kept a journal, and every time my emotional state changed, I would write down, what did I think that made my emotional state change? And then I would reflect on that at night. So I would go back and go, at 9 o'clock, I got anxious because um, a client sent me a message about X, Y, and Z, back in the
mm,
day. Or at 12 o'clock, I got excited because here's, an opportunity that someone brought to my attention that I think could really work well. And I would reflect on all my thoughts. And then I realized that 70% of my thoughts were all fear-based thoughts. So it was stuff that I started thinking in the back of my mind that made me anxious, even though there was no objective reality to really justify that thought. It was just something I thought. I was like, no, it can't be that easy. It's going to be extremely difficult. And then that would just be a subjective thought that came through because I just believed in that point in time that whatever that person said wasn't making sense. Not for a second that I objectively try and look at it and go, was that thought really objectively thought through? Or was it
mm,
just a thought that popped up and then affected my emotion? And I realized most of the thoughts that I had was just spontaneously popping up without me actually trying to control it. That's usually how our brains work. And then I realized, but most of these thoughts are negative. They're not good. And I
mm,
realized the negativity came from the people that I was surrounding myself with. It came from the news that I was reading and consuming. I was reading every single article I could find on Entrepreneurs Mag, on SME South Africa, on on Media 24. So I would be on all these platforms reading the news because I was under the impression that I need to know everything what's happening in the economy, because if I knew that, then I can better navigate my business. So as I started consuming all of this information, I realized all of that negativity was programmed into my subconscious mind, which then spontaneously, without really objective justification, just brought all these negative thoughts to the surface, which then made me anxious and then made me fearful. And once I started to just decide I'm going to stop consuming anything that's negative. That's just something I've been doing for years now. Like the moment someone complains, my brain almost just switch off. Yes, I can have empathy and sympathy for that person, but it does not go into my body or into my mind or suck my energy in any way. So the long of the short of it is that I did an audit on myself. And as I did that audit and reflected on that audit, I realized most of my thoughts were actually negative and fearful. Then I realized, well, the origin of that was just the media, the news, and the people that I was surrounding myself with. And as I consciously changed that, I got into masterminds. I got into, started meeting other entrepreneurs who were successful. And I started noticing that these people are always talking about opportunity, no matter how shit the economy is. They're always talking about here's an opportunity, this is how we can do that. And I would be around people who were just always positive. Like, the worst thing could happen to them, and they would be like, you know what? That's just life. Let's just move on. Let's just make the most of it. And I'd be like, damn, I wish I can adapt a perspective like that. And my dad used to be like that, actually. My dad used to just be this optimistic person who just would take every single challenge as a good thing. And thanks to maybe some DNA from my dad and being conscious and becoming aware of the people that I was surrounding myself with, and then consciously just changing my environment, I think over time, my subconscious and my thoughts just became more positive and more exciting and more passionate and just fulfilling in a way. And that led to me having a very balanced emotional state as an entrepreneur. Like my team will tell you, most people tell you, like I'm very neutral. Like I don't get overly excited, and I also don't get, overly sad or frustrated or anxious or annoyed or whatever. And at the end of the day, that led to me to be a very emotionally stable business owner, which allowed me to think objectively about the challenges that I have and what I can learn from those challenges. And as I've used my optimism and my positivity and my gratefulness for the challenge ahead of me, I just started overcoming them one by one through, you want to call it the grace of God or some higher intelligence. There's always been something that just allowed me to overcome these challenges, purely because of, I think, of the fact that I was open to those challenges. I didn't want to avoid it. Every challenge that's in my life, I go, how can we overcome this? Because how am I going to become a better version of myself if I do not overcome this challenge? And that is the thing. Like some people look at a challenge in a negative way, but the reality is it is the best thing that you can go through in order to become the version of yourself you need to become in order to achieve what you want to achieve. Like we have these big goals, but we are unfortunately at the time over here. So you have this big goal, but you over here, and then a challenge comes along that's going to make you and help you become the person you need to become. To you're like, nah, I'm not in the mood for these challenges. It's like, dude, these challenges are not really hurdles per se. They are pathways that you need to walk through so that you can become a better version of yourself, so that you can become the person you need to be to achieve the goal that you've set for yourself. And every challenge has got its lessons, which means with every challenge, you're one step closer to the goal that you've actually set for yourself. And that's just my belief.
Well, I think what really stands out is a lot of the time when we talk about being positive and having a positive mindset, it a lot of the times means that you fight negativity in a sense, or you kind of ignore it. But what I get from what you are saying is you embrace the negative in your life so that you can see what lessons you still have to learn. So it's not that I mean, some people, because there was, and I think it was especially in the early 2000s or just before that, this whole be positive kind of thing that people had, but it was sort of like denying negativity. Whereas what I find from what you're saying is, what is the feeling I'm feeling? Okay, I am feeling anxious. I'm not denying the fact that I'm feeling anxious, but let's go and see whether there's a reason to feel anxious, and just becoming aware of both those, the positive and the negative, and understanding that when a challenge arises, it's not necessarily a negative, but it's there for you to learn something. So I think you work with a lot of people, and we've got a question here that I think that is very relevant, because we need to be positive, but then what about our employees, and how can we, in the office space with employees, how do you help them with their mindset and their view over the business and their own personal life? From
Yeah.
Alicia de Villiers.
So just to touch on, I'll get to that question in a second. And just to basically touch on what you said, 100% spot on. It's not about denying the negativity. It's really about accepting the challenge for what it is and asking yourself, how can I overcome this? And how is this going to help me become a better version of myself? And even when you say negativity, negativity is subjective. You decide if it's positive or negative. Sometimes, most of the time, actually every time, everything is neutral. Nothing is objectively good or bad unless, yes, there are people who are getting murdered and stabbed and hijacked and all of that stuff. There's objectively bad things that happen. But 90% of the shit that happens in your life is not objectively positive or negative. It's just you that's deciding to give it that kind of meaning based on your own expectations of life. And I think the less I started judging the moment for what I believed it was, like saying this is negative and that's positive, I just saw everything as neutral. I just saw everything as it is what it needs to be
Wow.
so that I can become who I need to become. That's it. That's literally the mindset I've adapted, is going like, it is what it needs to be so that I can become who I need to become. Not positive, not negative. That's just how it is. So let's just move on and get it done. And I think that has allowed us to maneuver a lot of hurdles, through COVID. I mean, we're 6 years old, so we've had our challenges. But anyway, to get back to the actual question, like with people in the office space, I think, Alicia, if you are the owner of the business, and if you're referring to how to get people to maybe better understand the business and be more passionate about it, whatever it is, like, the reality is the people in your business are most likely never going to care about your business as much as you do, period. Just how it is. And if you expect them to do that, then you're just being unfair, purely because of the fact that it's not their business. But I think that aside, even though that's not what you asked, I think that's just a perspective I've adapted. I don't expect anybody to love my business or V8 Media for what it is. It's no longer really my business. It's now the people's business, really. We've gone to a point where it's really a family, and everybody controls, what gets done. And it's not a dictatorship. It's really a democracy. But I think in the early stages, I've realized that I have zero control of other people's perspectives. I can't make them think certain things. I can't change them consciously, and I can't control them. So the only way I managed to, I would say, influence maybe in a positive way was to just be myself, which is high energy when I came to the office, because that's just who I am, because I love what I do. To be always optimistic, because that's just who I became as a human being. To be ready for every single challenge, and let's say, fuck it, let's do it. Let's go. Let's make the most of it. And I think just through being myself, I think through osmosis, that rubbed off on the people around me. And what you will see happen is that if you do that, you're going to push the wrong people away, and you're going to start to attract the right people to you. So when you become your most authentic self as a business owner, and you actually are doing something that you're passionate about, that passion should just be there naturally and authentically. If you are someone who's always positive and excited about life, then again, it'll be there authentically. And if you are someone who's accepting challenges for what they are and want to make the most of it, then great. If you're someone who enjoys growth and wants other people to grow too, then through that authenticity, by you living your most authentic life, through osmosis, that's going to rub off on the people around you. And in time, it's going to push away the people who don't resonate with that, and it's going to attract the people that do. And that's just how it is. I think that's what we've done at V8 is, from a culture perspective, is that we are just who we are. We get shit done. We don't work 8 to 5. We work till the job is done, until we needed to get it done. There's no, I mean, yes, we have set hours, but if you look at the management team and people who've been here for a long time, we work until the job is done. We have fun as we work hard. We have fun as just as much, And at the same time, we're always ready for a challenge. We always want to make it work. We're always keen to just try something new. And through time, we've allowed us to attract the right people. And we've also pushed away the people who didn't resonate with that. We had a lot of, I want to say, not as hardworking, not as passionate people in the beginning when we started. But over time, they fell away and more amazing people joined. So I think it's a matter of just being your most authentic self. And through osmosis, that will rub off on the people below you. Because if you're going to have like this workshop of teaching people mindset and teaching them how to be optimistic, even though, objectively bad things might happen to them, they're just going to sit there on their phones, WhatsApping friends and telling them that they're in a boring presentation and their boss is, shoving things down their throat. So the reality is you cannot control that. The only thing that you can do is be the example. And naturally the right people will fall away and the right people will join.
That is so true. And it's true for any relationship. You cannot control others. And my daughter is now a teenager, and I actually have that exact same output. Like, I cannot tell her who and what to be. I can be who I am, and that is the only way for me to have a positive effect on her, because I'm such a big believer in it. It doesn't help what you tell people. It is who you are, because you are the only person that you can control. And what I found in different relationships, work, even romantic with my husband, with my kids, the moment I have a thought in my head that this person needs to change, say for instance, it's my husband or my kid or someone, they are doing something wrong and they need to change, then to me it's a red flag that I need to change. And that has really helped me so much. So if there are people underneath you and you feel like they need to change, maybe you need to change. And what you say, Jandre, is you will attract the right people and repel. And I see the questions
100%.
are coming in. There's just one last thing I want to say on this. This is so relevant to social media as well. What you just said there is so relevant to social media. So the biggest problem with social media is we don't know what content to put out there, and we are afraid of what others will feel or what others will think of us. And we look at the likes and the views and the comments. But here's the thing. If you can just go on that journey of being who you are, then you will attract the right people for your social media. If you can be true, because especially with social media, it shines through who you are, your authentic self. And it's not something that's going to come like this. The only way for you to find it is to start creating content and to start going on that journey, and to forget about likes and views and followers, because that is one thing that really keeps us from going out there and sharing our message. But I think we need to get into did you see a question that you want to answer?
I just wanted to share Sonelia's perspective. She said, we cannot shame ourselves into changing. Change starts with the compassionate acceptance of our reality. We assign meaning to what happens and then generate feelings based on the meaning we assign. And that's exactly, what I was alluding to, is that at the end of the day, these things that happen to us, they're really meaningless. And that's the benefit of life, is that it's actually meaningless. We give it meaning, and you give it meaning through your own perspective of that reality. So what she's also saying, which is important, is like, don't guilt yourself into changing, because when you do, you're not really changing. You're just forcing yourself to change without really dealing with the things that are actually making you feel guilty or that's making you feel anxious. So you're not really changing per se. The only way to change is to accept and work through those issues, because working through those issues, you start to become someone else, just by default. So it's not really saying this is who I'm going to be and this is how I'm going to be. It's really just focusing on what is holding you back, dealing with that. If it's fear, a lot of entrepreneurs are paralyzed by fear. So it's easy to start a business because you have zero fear, because you have nothing to lose. But when you want to grow and scale a business, then your mind goes, well, what if we fail? What if I lose? How am I going to cover salaries? What about my kids' school fees? What about this? So when your back is against the wall, you've got nothing to lose. You're like, fuck it, let me just start this business. Let me go. And then you realize, oh shit, we're growing and we we're heading in the right direction. But then all of a sudden fear kicks in. You're like, oh shit, well, let's not take this risk because I'm too scared that we lose what we got. So when you come to, I'd say when you reach level 1, everything is fine. Well, when you start to build on level 2, level 3, level 4, fear starts to kick in. And I think that's where most people get paralyzed. That's where most people, most entrepreneurs, most businesses get stuck, is because of that fear. And then when I know this is more of a conversation maybe for another time, but when you start to work through that fear, and when you start to really dive deep into what that fear really represents and what parts of yourself you need to work on, that fear basically dissipates in itself and better things start to happen. And it's weird, like things start to fall into place slowly but surely. So yeah, I think long story short, what Sanilia was saying is so true. And just wanted to give a shout out for her perspective as well.
Wow. Let's see if here's a question. Okay. Which one is the best? Be on social media as the face of your own company, or use influencers to market your business and get people to talk about it? So I would like to know what kind of business you have. But if I can give my advice on this. So it looks like you are just starting out on social media. When you are just starting out, especially, you just need to start posting. It's so important to just start where you are, because if you want to get influencers now, maybe you don't have clarity exactly on your message. And the whole idea of social media, when you share about your product, your service, is you actually don't, in the beginning, do it for your business. You do it for yourself. Actually, you do it to develop your own clarity on your product, on the service, on how to communicate and connect. So what I see often is people jump to influencers and they've got an idea of what the influencer is going to do for their business, but that idea is not what actually happens. So before you can, so we can look at influencers as having a magnifying glass, magnifying everything that's going on in your business. And if you don't have clarity and systems in place, for instance, an influencer is going to give you a lot of exposure, but what are you going to do with that? Like, do you have systems in place to turn that exposure into sales? Because I think the biggest misconception people have of using influencers, and I'm a big, big, big fan of using influencers, but the biggest misconception is that you're going to pay, for instance, 20,000 Rand for influencer post, and you're going to get sales, massive sales. But what happens is then you get zero sales, because all the influencer did was give you some brand awareness, but your business systems need to be in place to turn that into sales. So for me, it's very important that you need to start where you are. If you haven't been on social media, just start posting. Just start so that you can get to know the platforms, but also so that you can find your own voice of how do you communicate your amazingness about your product or service to people out there on a level and a way that they can instantly get it, that it can connect with them. So in the beginning, probably you just want to do kind of sales posts because you think this is what you should do. But then you're going to see, but it's not connecting, no one is engaging. And then you will have to go deeper and deeper and see, but how am I going to get people to actually listen to what I'm saying or read my post? And that is an amazing journey to venture on. Do you want to add something to that, Jandre?
Yeah, I think just to conclude it, maybe in a way, I mean, you said everything that there is to say, but just to conclude, at the end of the day, people want to buy from people. And if you're starting out, you have zero trust and zero credibility. So if you're going to have a faceless brand that no one knows, and if you just starting out and there's zero credibility and trust behind the brand, it's going to be quite tough to get traction unless you have an amazing marketing strategy and unless you have influencers who know what they're doing. And Like you said, if you have sales systems on the back of those influencers that can actually convert that intention into sales. But I really believe I'm usually I'm usually someone who understands both perspectives when someone gives opinion. And when someone asks the question, I don't think there's a wrong and a right way to do it sometimes. I think both roads are valid depending on the type of business owner that you are and how you want to run your business. But in this case, I'm 75-80% confident that it's ROI positive to be the face of your business in the beginning, especially in the beginning. And the reason I say that is because you are then making up for all the lack of reviews and testimonials and good experiences that people might have had in the past. And your face is acting as that brand, which means that when people see you and they connect with you and they agree with you and they feel your energy and they feel, just you as a human, there's this instant trust that comes with it that you now really don't have to work too much for, just purely because that you have been putting yourself on social media. So it's really hard to build trust and credibility in any industry. And the quickest way to shortcut that is to just be the face of your business, if that makes sense. It doesn't mean that you have to stay the face of your business. As the business grows, you might want to take a little bit more of a step back, and ideally you can then just act behind the scenes should you want to. But I do think it's ROI positive for you to be the face of your business from day one. That will allow you to attract more people purely because of the trust and the credibility that comes with it, which you won't have if you're starting out.
Absolutely. So let's see, what is this question? So Alicia is just saying, thank you so much, Jandre. I love the answer. So that was on how to motivate your employees. So I literally invite everyone on my social media just to see my status and stuff. And then surely I don't even get people's reactions at all. And sometimes I get reactions. I'm just anxious about some responses. So I think on this one, Jandre, you spoke about something on your Instagram, the energy behind your actions. And I mean, we can give some practical advice here, but maybe because what I see here is that anxiety behind posting and what people do. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit maybe on that, because I think that would be the first step, is that anxiety, trying to deal with that, and then go into all the practical tips.
Yeah, I think there's two things. Number one, and this is now starting with the practical tip, sorry, but it's understanding that if you invite everybody to look at your social media, not everybody is going to want to hear what you have to say. So if you're inviting your whole family, all your friends, everybody onto social media, and then you're posting stuff about your business or stuff, even if it's just a perspective that you're sharing, you need to understand that not everybody is going to care about what you have to say, and they're not going to resonate with what you have to say. That is why inviting people or adding them to your social media as a friend might not always be the best way to grow your business, purely because of those people might not be interested in what you have to sell. So it will be a better strategy would be to just put the content out there and let the people who resonate with that content actually start to follow you. So outside of that, I think getting back to the energy side of it, if you are going to be anxious about the post that you're creating, what we don't understand is this, and a lot of people are ignorant about this, is that everything is energy. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to believe it, but it doesn't change the fact that it's true. So I always tell people, it's like, you don't have to understand it. You don't have to believe it, but it's true. That's just how it is. The Bible speaks about it. The scientists speak about it. So at the end of the day, it's understanding that everything is energy. So if everything is energy, why does it feel so physical? So just to clarify, it's everything that you feel and that you see is matter. And that's what Albert Einstein basically explained so beautifully. He's saying E equals mc square, and understanding that energy moves into matter. So it's just energy vibrating extremely slowly so that it actually feels dense, that it feels like something solid. And if you look at it under a microscope, you'll realize, it's basically 99% empty space. Now, if your brain can almost sort of comprehend that, and you can believe that, then you start to understand that energy is real. Your anxiety is energy. That's what it is. So if you're going to be anxious about what you're doing, the reality is you're most likely going to attract something back that is going to justify that anxiety. So if you're going to be anxious about a specific post, or a specific message, and you're going to put that anxiety in there, there is most likely someone who's going to comment, and the comment is going to be constructed in such a way to justify your anxiety. So there's going to be someone that says this post is absolutely horrid, it shouldn't be on social media, delete it. And then your anxiety is going to be justified. So energy obviously attracts, and I'm not preaching the law of attraction of any way necessarily, but the reality is energy does attract like energy. That's why people who flock together, what is the birds of a feather flock together? That's the saying, right? That has got to do with energies basically just accumulating, similar energies accumulating to each other. So if you are going to be extremely anxious, then the action that you're taking might result into stuff happening in your reality that can justify that anxiety. Now, the question is, how can you deal with your anxiety? I think what you should be asking yourself is, why am I anxious? So there's a self-exploratory exercise that you can embark on and ask yourself, how the hell am I this anxious? What happened in my life that caused this anxiety? What do I believe is true? What do I believe is true that's actually making me feel this anxious about life, my business, whatever it is? And then as you start to peel those layers of the onion, you start to get to understand yourself so much better. And at the same time, you start to deal with some trauma maybe that's happened in your life, or certain events that, left you sort of scarred on the surface. Maybe you start to heal that. And then when that anxiety dissipates and it goes away, that's when you can actually start taking action out of love and excitement and optimism and gratefulness. And I believe that is the biggest shift that I've made in my life over the last 6 to 8 months, is consciously focusing on what energetic state am I in when I do the work. I believe 100% that most people are stuck in their lives, no matter how hard they work, purely because of the fact that the energetic state is that I'm doing this work, but I don't want to do it. I hate it. I don't enjoy it. And therefore, they're attracting events into their lives, results into their lives that meet that energetic state. So it's someone who's extremely passionate about what they do, someone who's always trying to improve, someone who's always willing to take constructive criticism, become a better version of themselves. It's seldom that you see those people get stuck in life. They seldom get stuck unless there is some belief that's holding them back. But someone who's sitting there going, I have to do this. I have to do that. I'm not in the mood for this. Like, those people, 90% of them get stuck all the time. So it's just realizing that your energetic state actually does make a difference in the success, and also the people that you actually attract into your life who can help create more success for you. So that's just my 2 cents on the matter.
Yeah, I think when it comes to social media and anxiety, it's such a normal thing, like everyone experiences. But what we have seen is that social media amplifies whatever is behind it. So if you are peaceful and you are in a state of really wanting to help, people feel that it's the weirdest thing. Like, our emotions gets amplified through social media, and people feel it on the other side. So when you feel anxious, rather don't post. So what I can give you as a practical tip is change your perspective on, I want to post to get likes and sales and all of that, towards, I want to post to help someone or serve someone today. So, for instance, if I were to make a post now, I would think of one of these questions, maybe your question, and I would think to myself, okay, what is it that I know that I can help you with, or how can I answer that question? If I go on social media and give that advice in my head to one person, but it goes out on the platform, guess what happens? I am not afraid to do it. I don't feel anxious about it, because this is what I know. I can give my advice to the best of my ability about my product or service. And I'm thinking in my head of one person, of you that asked the question. And because of that, I'm not trying to be something else that I'm not. I can give you what I know, my experience, my knowledge. And then when I do that, and I think to myself, if this post only helps one person today, then that's fine. The other thing is, we look at likes and comments, and yes, those things are important much later on in the journey. But in the beginning, it's about focusing on the fact that remembering you don't like all the posts that you find valuable or that you see. We don't do that, but we expect other people to like our posts. So what I often tell my students is go start giving, like in terms of start giving good feedback. When you see something good on social media and it helped you, start first by giving what you want back. So when you start doing that, you start commenting on other people's stuff, you start liking their stuff, you say, thank you, this was so helpful, or wow, this really saved me a lot of trouble. You go and give that, and then miraculously it starts coming back to you on social media. Whereas if we view social media as a platform of we want like, we want followers, we want sales, let go of that and say, I'm just going to use this platform to give back, to
Mm.
tell someone, wow, you look really great in that clothing that you've got on, or this tip that you shared was really helpful. And then you will see when you are in that, it's a different energy you give off. Then when you post, you won't feel that anxiety anymore, or it will slowly start going away. So that is my practical tip for you. I
Love
see
it.
there's another question here. I would like to start an embroidery and craft page. Business, not registered yet. I'm retired and I want to earn an extra income. What is the best way to start and advertise, please? Alta, so my go to is always start where you are. So I would start on my personal page, just start posting and talking about it. And yes, creating a business page is important. But we can get Jandre's view on this now. But I would not, in the beginning, spend too much time on getting the business registered, on spending overly too much time on getting a name and getting a logo. I would just start sharing what you have, because by sharing you get your own, you start forming clarity on exactly what it is. Because a lot of the times we start in business and we think we want to do something, but as we put out content in the market tells us what parts of this do they like, and it's sort of like you get your clarity in the journey. So
Mm.
my advice would be to just start where you are. If you have a personal page, go on that page today, post something, tell people what you want to do, or ask a question, and then go on the journey. And then yes, eventually create a page and all of that, which is great, but start where you are with what you have. What advice
Yeah,
do
I
you have?
think yeah, Shem, I think mine is very similar. It's like you said it beautifully. Just start where you are, because sometimes we want to start all the way over there
Mm.
and then we realize, but I have to do all of this work to get there. So I might as well just start over here and do what I can with what I've got. And that's really the approach: is what can you do with what you've got. And if you have maybe a social media page, which
Mm.
I'm sure you're on here, so I'm sure that you've got a Facebook profile. Starting a Facebook page is not going to be too hard. And then maybe if you wanted to, like, I believe in paid advertising because it allows you to really specifically target who you want to, send out your message to. So one thing I can maybe say is looking at taking a radius around your, because if you're doing embroidery, I'm assuming people have to bring their stuff to you. It has to be, it's more of a local kind of business that you will have. It's not something that you can just sell online. So you can pick a specific radius in your area, start targeting. I don't know who you want to embroider for, if that's for, businesses looking to do merchandise, or I don't know what kind of people would be your ideal customer. But you can obviously figure that out and ask yourself, who do I really want to do business with? And by targeting those people on Facebook through a post, driving them into a WhatsApp conversation, is not a bad way to start. Just driving them straight into WhatsApp will be quite cool, because you can just have a conversation with
Mm.
them there and then. You can target the demographic, or specifically who you think would be interested in the services that you want to sell. And but I think, Magriet, that I'm even taking it like a step 2 to a step 3. It's just starting with your network. I actually
Mm.
have my
Mm.
brother-in-law's mom does stitching, and she's retired and she's earning an extra income through just like stitching clothes together and fixing clothes and making stuff. And most of her income is from friends and family. So it's
Mm.
looking at it going, if you don't want to jump the gun and speed things up, take it slow, start where you are, start with friends, start with family,
Mm.
anybody who might need some stitching work done or embroidery work done. And if you've tapped out that circle of business, then move on to a Facebook page and spend $30 a day or $20 a day on trying to find the right conversations that could lead to business.
Yeah, definitely. So even before social media, just go to your phone, just go and send a WhatsApp to everyone, tell them, look, this is what I'm doing, and start there. And then get them to give you positive feedback. And then you start posting that on social media. Hello, Dee. It's lovely to see you. She says, very good session. Thank you for the inspiration. Lovely to have you here, Dee. Nazreen, do you want to read her comments?
Nazreem, the 3 best things I have done to lessen my stress is to stop wearing a wristwatch. Well done. Stop watching or reading so-called news. Gave up on television. My decisions are based on what I experience in my business. Given my business is international trade and tourism, getting gaslit constantly doesn't help. So, I mean, my perspective on that is like you're definitely doing the right stuff, which is focusing on what you can control. You cannot control the news. You cannot control other people's opinion. And when you're around those negative people, what ends up happening is that it starts to feed into your subconscious mind, into your energetic state. And I'm just I told you earlier, Magriet, before we started this class, like I've got a force field of negativity, like a force field that just blocks all negativity. I believe it in my mind. I can feel it. I can see it. It might sound crazy, but I'm impenetrable when it comes to negativity. Like I just refuse to accept it, to understand it, I can empathize for people who might have an opinion on a specific event that they believe is extremely negative. I can empathize, I can sympathize, but it does not affect me as a human being. And that's the biggest shift that I've made as focusing on energy. This is my 2 words for the year: energy and synchronicity. Synchronicity, something we can talk about at a much later time. But the energy that you surround yourself with, the people, the news, the whatever it may be, at the end of the day, is so crucial. And you're definitely doing the right thing.
So we've got 10 minutes left, and I want to move the conversation into something that I think it's going to be so valuable, and that is looking into the future and the opportunities. But before we do that, so I want you to end off with that, specifically the opportunities for business, because it's so important to just have that light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe many of you are feeling the pressure of the economy and all of that. So I want us to end us off there. But before we end off, will you all please just share this video? Maybe there's someone else out there that needs some words of encouragement. So just do us a big favor and share the video with your friends. Maybe tag someone. Jandre, so I'm going to give over to you, because to me that is always the most exciting, is when it feels like everything is dark and we hear about recession and people are really struggling. How can we change that to see opportunities? Or maybe you can just give us some hope of all the opportunities that are actually there that we are maybe not seeing because of the state that we are in.
Yeah, look, I think I can't make a list of all the opportunities that are out there necessarily, because I don't know all of them. There's so many, but at the same time, what is an opportunity to me might not be an opportunity to someone else. That's one thing we need to keep in mind. But I can say this, is that at the end of the day, it's never been easier to start your own business. That is the biggest opportunity that is out there in the market. Like, you need very little money to start making money. And that is something that has never been possible. I think back in the old days, like, you needed a bit of money to do something for yourself. Today, we live in an age where you need very little money to start attracting clients or customers. We make it very difficult for ourselves, unfortunately, and we make it difficult by following bad advice or trying to figure everything out by ourselves when that information is already around. If you just ask around for the information, we make it difficult for ourselves by not being open-minded to other people's who've actually done it in the past's opinion. We make it difficult for ourselves believing that it's not possible. We make it difficult for ourselves by being in a negative energy state because of everything that happens around us. So I believe that we are just our own worst enemy, because as much as we can complain about the economy and we can complain about everything that's going wrong, there are people who are living their best lives right now. And more people
Mm.
are living their best lives right now. There are entrepreneurs
Mm.
who are making a ton of money. Sure, there are also entrepreneurs who are losing a ton of money, but it doesn't mean that's not forever. And I think it is not a linear process. We see everything as a linear process. So what we do is we go, there's so much opportunity. So from now on, starting tomorrow, everything is just going to be easy. No, that's not what we're saying. It's not a linear process. It goes up, it goes down. There are days when you have amazing things happen, and then there are days where less amazing things happen. But it's really understanding that you've got 12 months to really make a difference for yourself. And you need to start looking at those 12 months, going, what can I do for the next 12
Mm.
months that can really make a difference in my life over the next 30, 40 years? And I think we underestimate what we can do in a year, but we overestimate what we can do in a day. So it's almost like we want to do everything today and we want to have our lives
Mm.
change tomorrow. And that's just not how it works. That's not how opportunity works either. No, there's not an opportunity that's going to come along necessarily and go, hey, click this button and tomorrow you're going to be rich. It's unfortunately doesn't work that way. So with whatever opportunity that you spot, whatever opportunity that you pursue, there are going to be challenges. There's going to be friction, and there are going to be things that happen that might look like roadblocks. But coming back to the conversation we had earlier, they're not roadblocks.
Mm.
They're just challenges. You can see them as pathways. I like to call them pathways because I think it's things that you have to go through so that you can learn the lessons you need to learn in order to become who you need to become to achieve the goal and to maximize the opportunity you decided to maximize. So it is a fact. Many opportunities exist. I think the internet is really where most of the opportunity lies. So it's understanding that if you're looking for opportunity, you don't have to look further than your smartphone and Google. And if you're
Mm.
going to look for opportunities, it's how to start an online business, how to start, an e-commerce business, or how to take whatever skill you have and just sell that to the people around you. So whatever skill you have, how can that be of service to people around you? And you can use the internet to put that message out there at an affordable rate that you've never been able to do before. So I think that's my take on it.
Mm.
I think I just eliminate all the negativity in my life, and I just know one thing, and that is optimism and positive challenges and whatever happens. Like, and I've been through a lot. Like, don't mistake, the journey that I've gone through. Magriet, you have an idea of what I've gone
Mm.
through. The reality is, I still look at it and go, I can use that constructively to become the best version of myself, and I will do that.
Mm.
So, and I think if I can do that based on what's happened to me, many others, everyone
Mm.
else can do the same for themselves.
But it's about making that decision and making that choice. I think when I worked for a boss, so I'm so happy I worked for a boss because I learned so much. So one of the things that I did is,
Can I say something? I need to interject. Sorry,
yes.
just to interrupt you, but I feel this is so crucial. If I didn't work for someone else, I never would have learned and been able to be who I am today. Period.
Mm.
I
Mm.
think every single person should work for someone smarter than them, wiser than them, more experienced than them, with the idea to learn as much as possible. And also, I don't like the word boss. Like, at the end of the day, you can work with other people to achieve a common
Yeah.
goal, and whether you own the business or not, you can still
But
have a very fulfilling
yeah.
job
So
or
so in
career.
my case, I was a young mom and I didn't have any flexibility. So what I would do is every single day I would go home and bitch and moan about everything that my boss did wrong. Now my boss made a lot of money in its is sadly passed away, but I was very unhappy working there. And every single day for about 3 or 4 years, I would go home and tell my husband everything that they're doing wrong. And until one day, it struck me like it just came like, I'm like, but no one's forcing me to be here. So I'm here because of choices that I made. And
Mm.
that shook me. Like, my boss is where he is because he started a business. He went through stuff. Like, what is wrong with me? Like, why do I have to work for him if I'm not happy? Like, why do I have to do it? And I have to say, that is where everything changed for me. It was that thinking, oh my word, what is it that I don't know? What am I doing wrong? And focusing on what I can do. And then suddenly, everything he did, like whether it was right or wrong, I had to think, but it's his business. He's the boss. He can do whatever he wants. If I'm not happy with it, why don't I
Mm.
become my own boss? And for me, that changed my entire life because then I went on this journey of figuring out, like, what is it that I don't know? Why can't I be my own boss? Why do I need to work for someone if I'm not happy? And yeah, I think that's just the same with opportunities, or wherever we are in life is exactly where we choose to be. So if we are at a
And can I
place,
say something? Can
yeah.
I say something? Wherever we are in life is sometimes exactly where we need to be too.
Mm, very
So
true.
this is what we underestimate sometimes, is that we think we are
Yes.
somewhere we're not supposed to be. No, no. You only have that perspective because you want to be somewhere else now. But
Yes.
it's your wanting to be somewhere else that's making you feel you're not where you're supposed to be. But sometimes where you are, actually, I believe that at all times you are exactly where you need to be to learn the lessons you need to learn. Because if you weren't there, would you have adapted that perspective? And without that perspective, would you have made a monumental shift in your own life? So the reality is, you were exactly where you needed to be to become who you needed to become.
Exactly, but I didn't have to stay there that
Exactly.
long. I had to realize there are lessons that I need to learn. So I was sort of going around the mountain until I realized, oh, I need to figure out how to get over this mountain. And that was a big shift. And I think it's relevant. Like you say, stuff happens in life, but you can still choose to make that or to learn the lessons that you need
Mm.
to learn.
Amen.
Oh, guys, it's so lovely. Thank you for everyone who shared. I saw some of you tagging. Please let us know what topics you want us to discuss next week. Hierdie is so leersaam. Wow, baie dankie vir die wysheid. We are on the end. Let's just quickly see if there's another thing. So true, Magriet. Everything you said resonates with my position. You have helped me to make the necessary shift that I finally made at the end of 2023. Joan, so I have to tell you about Joan because she's such an inspiration. So Joan is a chemistry teacher or as tutor, and she's 75, and she is one of my biggest inspirations because at 75 she made a career shift. She started her own thing. So Joan, thanks so much for joining. This is so insightful, and what we love in the training is, when we see that she does not let age define her. She
Mm.
actually does the training, she implements, she create the pages, she create the post. Like some time ago, we said she must go and get reviews. She got the reviews. It is just so inspirational. Thanks so much, Joan, for also joining here.
That's beautiful, man. That's such a
Yeah.
beautiful moment. And I think so often we work with people who might be classify themselves as elderly, but and then they would be like, oh, I don't have time for this, or I don't know how this works. I'm not going to be able to figure it out. I was like, you putting all of those limitations on yourself purely because of your own belief.
Because of your own belief. Like social media don't discriminate, technology don't discriminate against, opportunities don't discriminate. It's just
Yeah,
um sorry, like you say, the meaning we give to it. So
exactly.
yeah, thanks so much for joining, guys. Someone says this was really insightful. We will see you again next Thursday. Please let us know, reply on email to either Jandre or myself. Let us know if there's anything you want us to discuss. um Ek wil regtig 'n beter weergawe van myself wees. You know what? I live by that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher is there. And if you
Mm.
are ready to become a better version of yourself, you will seek out mentors and tutors to help you become that. So congratulations. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, guys. Last word from you, Jandre, before we log off.
Pay attention to what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, who you surround yourself with. Start to audit your thoughts. I literally had a reminder on my phone or my watch at the time that literally went off every 2 hours to summarize what I've been thinking and feeling. And that's how I started doing an audit on my thoughts and my energetic state. And then I realized I am my own worst enemy because I'm giving into these negative thoughts. I'm giving into these emotional, like irrational emotional behaviors, like from fear and anxiety. And I would say start to self-reflect, become a little bit more self-aware, and start to pay attention to what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, and who you surround yourself with. And 2024 can be a very different year to last year if you start to do that differently.
Yes, yes, I'm in for that. 2024 can be the year that we want it to be. We just need to
Amen.
make that choice. What do we actually
Exactly.
want? Okay. Thanks so much, guys. See you next Thursday, same time. Bye bye.
Bye.